Okay. Good evening, folks. I'm going to call the public hearing to order tonight. It's 5:30, May 13th, and we have two public hearings to get through tonight, both on a similar topic, so there will only be one presentation, but then we are going to split them into two different public hearings, so mostly for procedural reasons. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to receive input and comments on Bylaw 18, 2024, the Willows land use amendments. I'm going to outline the procedures by which we will be taking comments from the applicant and the public tonight. And before I do, can I confirm that the notice was of the hearing was published in accordance with section 606 and 692 of the MGA? Yep. Okay, thank you. As you came in, you were given the opportunity to add your name to the speakers list. Should have been at the front table there. We request that all in attendance who wish to make comments ensure that you're on that list. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will abide by the following rules. I'm initially going to call on the applicant to present to council on their application, and then we'll move to that speakers list. There is no formal presentation by administration tonight during the public hearing, as this is council's opportunity to hear directly from the applicant and affected residents. Once the applicant has completed their presentation and answered questions from council, I will call on those on the speakers list. And as I just said, it was super important to be on the speakers list. Don't worry, if we get to the end of the speakers list, I will then call to see if there's anyone in the gallery who wishes to speak also. When your name is called, please come to the microphone at the podium here by the big pillar. Face the podium and state your name and any group or association that you may represent. It's important that you speak into the microphone so that we can record. Well, we are recording and streaming live, but then the recording goes on the website, and the microphones are the only way to pick up the conversations. Each person will be given 5 minutes to make their comments, and 10 if you're representing a group. We appreciate everyone working to keep within the time allotted. If need be, I will indicate with the small wooden hammer if you're getting close to your time. I ask that everyone be courteous and respectful to one another. Only one speaker should be speaking at a time, please, ensuring you're directly in front of the microphone, as I mentioned, and so that comments can be heard through the streaming. Please do not interrupt a speaker or shout out comments. Speakers will not engage in dialogue with gallery members. And once all the public have had their opportunity to speak, council may call on the applicant for any clarifying questions. And I will note that as this is a public hearing, no decisions will be made tonight, as the purpose of a public hearing is to hear from both the public and the applicant. So with that, we'll move into public hearing number 1, which is Bylaw 18, 2024, the Willows land use amendments. And I will call on the applicant to come forward, please.
Good evening, Mayor Janung and Council. My name is Pam McInnes, BNA Studios, and I'm here tonight representing Willows West and Madley Developments Limited Partnership for the Willows Land Use Amendment. I have Kent Highstead with me here tonight, and he'll come up at the end to help answer questions if there's anything that I can't answer. So Kent Highstead and I worked together to prepare the Willows neighborhood plan back in 2012. At the time, the lands to the west, which are indicated in the brown RM district, did not fully participate in the neighborhood plan process, but we did engage with them. It was Mr. Arneson at the time, and we did speak with him and ensure the plan reflected his goals, and he did allow us access to the property to do our BIA. At the time, we all envisioned protection of that wetland. It was named Wetland 80 in that BIA. The land use identified during the neighborhood plan preparation was RM, as you can see, and that was the highest density that Cochrane had at the time. Density placement here was viewed as most appropriate, as it provided a buffer to the adjacent commercial uses. A few years later, Mr. Arneson was ready to pursue land use on his property, and he asked myself to help with that land use redesignation. However, he was concerned at the time that wetland 80 was growing artificially. So he took it upon himself to document it. And this was presented to Alberta Environment and then ultimately to Council in 2014 during his land use redesignation public hearing. Alberta Environment ordered a stop to the pumping that we can see in these photos and the removal of the culvert that was installed by the adjacent landowner. These photos were taken by Mr. Arneson, and within them you can see that pumping and the culvert. There were two technical reports which reviewed wetland 80 prior to the significant influences of pumping into that wetland. These were the original BIA commissioned by the town for the River Heights ASP, and that was with Sweetgrass Consulting in 2010. Then for our neighborhood plan, we used the same consultant to undertake a more detailed BIA, for which field work was done in 2011. In 2014, when land use was being pursued by Mr. Arneson, and the wetland was really showing a lot of distress, not only was Alberta Environment alerted, we also started doing additional technical studies to determine the long-term viability of that wetland. We undertook a new geotechnical analysis, which had additional boreholes, as well as a hydrogeological assessment to determine if there were any groundwater sources to the wetland. It was determined that the wetland was only fed via overland drainage. We then commissioned a wetland mitigation assessment to determine the catchment area for it, and therefore the future sustainability of that wetland. The key findings of our 4 additional studies was that if there's no groundwater source of the wetland, that means it's not connected to other wetlands. It only receives water from overland catchment area. And if the catchment area is developed and no longer continues to direct water towards the wetland would dry up. The catchment area for wetland 80 was to the west and northwest of the wetland. Today, this area is already developed or developing and is owned by others. The catchment area has or is being graded for development, and stormwater from those developments is being managed through their own stormwater networks. Due to the grading activities on those lands, the land no longer naturally drains in this direction. In addition, we wanted to address the risk of flooding due to removal of wetland 80, because we know that wetlands do serve a flood mitigation use. The findings of the studies determined that the wetland is not connected via springs or streams to any other wetlands. Therefore, removing the catchment area, which is happening right now, and then the wetland would result in eliminating the risk of flooding. As we look through some historical photos, we can start to see the impact of the water pumping that was happening in 2011 to 2014. This photo was taken in 2011. It is close to the time when the pumping started. All of the wetlands in the area look full and productive in this photo. Development of the seniors living site is just starting, and there was one dealership developed to the west. During 2023 was one of the years of the pumping occurring, and you can see how the wetland has really increased in size in this photo. And it's interesting because in this photo, other wetlands in the catchment area are drier than they were in the previous year. By 2014, the wetland had a significant amount of excess water added to it, which caused algae growth. The size also grew while others in the area were still a little bit drier at the time. By 2015, all pumping had stopped and the culvert was removed. Development is continuing on the seniors living site and the commercial lands to the west. The wetland is starting to recover, but also shrink in size. Wetland vegetation is also becoming less dense around the wetland. Further drying and reduction of wetland vegetation in 2016, and also note that the wetlands near the highway are still very full. By 2018, the commercial site to the west is almost fully developed. The wetland seems clear again, however, vegetation is significantly reduced, and the wetland is shrinking from its banks. And finally, in 2023, we can see more shrinking occurring while the wetlands to the west are also still full. Development is actively occurring to the north now. Here's a side-by-side of the wetlands from when it originally was intended to be preserved to now, which indicates slow drying over time. Ignoring the color difference between the two photos, because it's probably just different times of the year, the density of the adjacent wetland vegetation is impacted as well as the wetland itself. So to move on to the amendment we're proposing is to change the existing RMX land use areas to RMD. The RMX land use allows up to 4 attached units in a row, and the RMD allows for more attached units, which is the reason we're pursuing the change. This slide shows the neighborhood plan map on the left and our proposed amendment on the right. The neighborhood plan envisioned these lands as high-density multifamily site, accommodating approximately 134 units. The concept we are showing, it would still be subject to a development permit. We are only seeking land use here tonight. Is anticipating approximately 110 units. As shown, an increase in public green space from what was initially envisioned is included. Publicly acceptable green space will surround the development. This will add walking paths for residents who will now be able to loop around their community. In addition, we have softened the impact of the development on residents by extending the green space behind each home to the east. Where there was previously only 3 to 4 homes backing onto green space, we would now have 14 homes backing onto green space. And if I flip back, you can just see how our land use here, our green space came behind these residents here, and we're now extending it all the way down. And in addition to this land use amendment, does correct the south portion of this plan area to allow it to align with the South Bow neighborhood plan. Pretty much the entire South Bow neighborhood plan does rely on the relocation of the Alta Link right-of-way. And so we've worked with Qualico and Alta Link to include the realignment of the right-of-way in the bottom part of the plan. We created this image to demonstrate the impact of the proposed development on the adjacent homes to the east. While multifamily buildings will likely be 3 stories tall, they are set back an average of 20 meters and will be buffered by open space, pathway, and trees all along the boundary. This is just a slightly different view where you can see the commercial building on the right side of the plan, which lies west of the community. Within the green space buffer, we're seeking to replace the amenity use that residents have been using the wetland for. While not legal or safe, residents have been skating on the wetland in the winter. They even bring their own hockey nets and equipment out. And we also have kids, we get it. Kids need something to do in the winter and they need activities. Therefore, we have proposed to replace that unsafe skating surface with a sport court facility that can operate as a skating rink in the winter. We're committed to this. We have put landscape drawings in the appendix of the neighborhood plan, which reflect this, and we've submitted a landscape plan to the Parks Department. One item of feedback we did receive at our open house was to change the shape of the rink from the kidney shape, which is hard to see, but you'll see it better on the next image, to a rectangular shape. This would allow some of the older kids to use the surface as a hockey rink. And the landscape plan that we submitted does also reflect that change. We will work with town staff on what would be the best summer use for the sport court area. We did show at the open house a basketball court as an option. And we certainly do see skating as the best winter use. We would like to include a gathering place with a fire pit should parks and community services feel that it's viable. So Kent Heisted has been having conversations with CMHC to bring affordable housing into this project. And should this go forward, we're happy to say that it has been pre-approved to include 20% of units as affordable rental units. What that means is that 22 units within the development will have a rental rate that's no higher than the 2019 CMHC medium income. This would add 22 affordable rental units into Cochrane's inventory for affordable housing. To summarize the benefits of the proposed development, we created this table, recognizing that there are trade-offs in land development and city building, especially when existing residents are affected by new development. We have strived to reduce the impact and create something that residents will grow to use and enjoy. The original land use offered 0.68 acres of open space, and our plan has over 1.71 acres. The current state of the land is private property that is unsafe for public access in some areas due to drying wetland vegetation and wet and low-lying areas. However, people, including kids, are still accessing it. Our proposal will change the area into public space with attractive landscaping, walking paths, and year-round amenities. The site currently does have RMX land use. Willows West Partnership could proceed with a development permit now without coming to council, but we're here tonight because we're asking to change the land use. If development did proceed on the existing land use, it would be right behind 10 additional homes impacting those residents. Our proposal does offer a green space buffer behind 14 homes instead of 4. The current state of the land today is that there is a wetland. However, neither the town staff or Alberta Environment have voiced concern over removal of it because it's unlikely to be that way for 10 years from now, and it could become a maintenance issue for the town as it starts to degrade. As mentioned, the replacement, we will offer a safe space for active recreation in both the summer and the winter months. We will replace trees with newly planted trees that will grow into a nice buffer between the single-family homes and the development. The current land use permits a lower density form of housing that makes the inclusion of affordable housing less viable. And then just to quickly summarize our engagement with the community, we hand-delivered postcards to all residents in the Willows to ensure they had our contact information and were aware of our open house. We placed signs on the property so that other nearby residents also would acquire our contact information and come to the open house. And we also advertised in the paper and sent an invitation to the community association. While we hadn't received any direct phone calls or email questions, we did have about 35 people come to the open house, and 12 of those people did fill out our feedback forms. The main concern voiced on the forms was traffic, but we assured residents that the neighborhood plan had always been designed to accommodate multifamily in this location. The second highest concern was losing the wetland, and largely associated with losing the amenity it provided. So we also felt that our proposal did address this concern. And thirdly, we heard a lot about a lack of neighborhood amenities, especially for older children. That is what led us to change the skating rink into something that older kids might feel is more usable. We thank you for listening to the presentation. We understand that we're proposing to remove a wetland that has an uncertain future, but we are hoping that council sees the benefits of what the development could bring for the community.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I'll open it up to council for any questions of the applicant. Councilor Reid.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. That was very informative. Just curious what Alberta Environment has said about this wetland spot. Can you bring us all up to date on that?
Certainly, and we do apologize that our biologist was intending to be here tonight and then last minute wasn't able to come. But I believe they did send an email. Hopefully it can be included in the public hearing submission. The Alberta Environment did approve a Water Act application to remove the wetland. So from Alberta Environment's perspective, the wetland wasn't deemed as active enough for them to claim it as an important wetland. And so they issued a Water Act approval to have it removed. That's about as far as Alberta Environment provides a position on. They give the authority to remove it, as long as it's compensated for. But they don't discuss with us their valuation of it, or they just review the documents that are submitted, and then they issue their response.
So just to be clear, they would have reviewed the consultant's report that you referred to in 2024, that was on a...
Through the chair, that's correct. We submitted the original BIA, we submitted the wetland mitigation report, and we submitted the updated 2022 trace wetland impact assessment report.
And those are third-party assessments, right?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Flowers?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions and a couple of comments. When I read all the reports about the environmental stuff, it seemed to have a lot of mixed messages. Well, it could dry up, but maybe it won't. And there was positives and negatives all the way through it, and then they don't really take responsibility for the outcome of it. So I found it really confusing to read. My biggest question is about the affordable housing. So CMHC has approved for sure 22 units, or might approve?
Through the chair to Councillor Flowers, CMHC has approved 20% of units. So the current plan that Kent has been working on does show 110 units, therefore 20% of those would be affordable housing.
And did they give that to you in writing? It's definite?
Through the chair to Councillor Flowers, we do have a certificate of insurance from CMHC that we did provide to senior administration.
Okay. And did you talk to somebody who would manage it?
We have a management company that will manage all of the rental units.
And they already do affordable housing units?
They do. They're growing and significant from Calgary. They do at least one building that I know of in Cochrane as well.
For affordable housing?
That one would not be in Cochrane for affordable.
Okay, and back to the water. So it seems the pictures that we got sent from some of the neighbors have birds and coyotes and all kinds of things still there. So maybe there's not as much water, but it's certainly not dried up. Is there a percentage where they say, well, it's going to dry up?
Through the chair to Councillor Flowers, we have experienced dry years, or last couple of years that are dry for sure. One thing that we do not have control of, when we develop everything around it, we are required to direct the stormwater away from it. So the next 6 acres, or the balance of 6 acres that are still working to drain into the wetland today, will be diverted into the storm system and will not supplement the wetland. So it will likely dry up, similar to the one that is in the Willows that's existing today, where it used to have water in it, but now it does not. Because it's Alberta Environment, the legislation, we are required not to put that water into the wetland.
It's a tough call because we're in the middle of a drought. Things could change significantly.
The thing that we draw a correlation to, though, is the wetlands that are 100 meters away beside Toyota, they're still full even though it's been dry, because their drainage pattern has not been changed.
Okay, thanks. I look forward to hearing the rest of the info.
Councillor McFadden?
Yes, thank you very much. I have a couple of questions here. In one of your early slides, you were kind of giving the highlights of wetland 80, and one of the reports from the Stantec, I think it was noted, was that it identified that treated stormwater should be discharged into the pond. That's not happened.
That, through the chair to Councillor McFadden, that is what should happen, but under the legislation provincially, we're not allowed to. So that has to change at a provincial level for us to be able to supplement wetlands going forward.
Okay. You might be familiar with this one. So across the road at Fireside, we've got the 2 different wetlands there, right? We've got the stormwater and then you have the wetland. And that is an example of where stormwater is supplementing the wetland, is that correct?
That is correct, and we did get that approval.
Yeah.
It seems to be working just fine, but
Yeah.
they never changed any legislation. They did it as I don't know if they did it as a test or not, but today we're not allowed to do that any further.
Oh, okay, all right. 10, and I do appreciate your plan benefit comparisons. The number of green space, the 10 homes now not being able to back onto green spaces versus 3, I think you'd identify, so I appreciate that. The other piece that was identified is if the wetlands are removed, the legislation requires compensation being given. But my understanding is that the compensation is not within the town of Cochrane boundaries. I think it goes to, can't remember official, what organization for them to disperse it there.
Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, the province referees where the money goes.
Right.
We had a calculation, we had to write a check, we wrote the check, the province took the money. Historically, it's gone to Ducks Unlimited.
Right, thank you.
I don't know exactly if that's where it goes anymore, but they get to decide where to use it.
Right, so it not necessarily would benefit the town of Cochrane
That's right.
residents. Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate Councillor Flowers' point. We're probably in the 3rd year of a drought, so that impacts the situation. I haven't actually seen the wetland in recent days to know its current state. But yeah, I appreciate all of the updates, and those are kind of my questions for right now, so thank you very much.
Back to you, Councillor Reid.
I jumped on before Councillor Wilson did. I apologize, John. I had another question. Do I understand you to say that if there were problems, the associated houses to the east will not experience any issues with water in their yards or their basements?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, do I understand the question to be, if the wetland stays, will they experience?
No, sorry, I should have been clear. With the development as proposed, will the properties to the east experience anything in terms of water problems, in terms of foundation, sump pumping, backyard flooding?
I'm not an engineer, but when the engineers designed the subdivision and the homes that, oh, you're talking about the new ones, not the existing.
Yeah, I'm talking about the new one. So
The new
again,
ones, no. They will take out what they call the organic material, compact and fill it with proper material so that it sits properly, just like every other subdivision in the town of Cochrane.
okay, maybe I could be more precise. So the homes to the east of this proposed development would not experience any effects of water of any type?
No, they will not. Oh, the water will be directed into the storm system away from any of their residences.
Okay,
The,
thank you.
the grades will be set so there's overland flows to escape. So no, there would be no flooding into their backyards.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Thanks for the package and the presentation. I think I understand if this is ultimately approved, what it'll look like on those lands. What I don't understand as much is if it's rejected, I don't quite understand what's currently approved on the land, or what would go ahead if this application was rejected. Can you speak to that at all?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, currently there is an RMX zoning in place, which permits up to 13 meters in height, which can be basically 4-story buildings. It can have buildings up to 8 units, I believe, in one building. The density of the units, like in the sense of the difference between RMD and RMX, as we understand it, will have more buildings of less units, is what would occur. Same height, same size. If they will continue with the existing zoning that we've got in place, they will be built closer to the homes that are existing because the land use grows right up to their backyard. In the case of the new one, we're moving everything as far west as we can. So we will still develop multifamily housing in there. There will be more units, the same size. Whether we get the same density or more, we don't know until we do the calculations. It'll be more directly impactful to the residents than farther away.
Okay, thank you. And then I think you also answered if it's ultimately rejected, wetland 80 stays as it is. It may continue to dry out, and you'd mentioned it might become a problem that the town takes on to, I don't know what becomes of it, but can you speak to anything of what happens to wetland 80 if it's rejected?
similar to the one that's existing in the Willows, it'll dry up and probably grass over and becomes parkland that's not usable. Whether it's a impact cost to the town or not would be up to their maintenance division to decide whether they use it or manicure it.
Okay, thanks for indulging me with that question. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions. I had most of mine asked. Maybe just to build off what Councillor Wilson was asking, I had a similar question. So, and I don't know if wasn't clear to me at the beginning, but it is now. If nothing were to happen and there was no approval given, then you're well within your rights to go back to the existing land use, which is the RMX, RMX, which allows all the amenities that you just outlined to Councillor Wilson. But the wetland would remain, and whatever happens to it, happens to it.
Yes, Mayor Bajung, that's correct. It will also affect the power line and the relocation in the south end of the Willows as well. That would have to be sorted out in the future, but it will probably delay Southwell.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up. So on the slide on the right, or the picture on the right, is the proposed,
Yes.
Yes.
and the realignment of the power line is where, sorry?
So, to Mayor Zhenong, this is the original alignment. This is where it is right now today. And the realignment would come to here and then head this way.
That yellow lot at the south, Mary Jung, is the last lot. The power line would be immediately to the west of that going south.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's a couple of things at play. So wetland would remain, but at its own peril, I guess, for lack of a better word. The power line would have to be renegotiated or realigned.
Yes, I guess
Potentially.
it would potentially have to change in its location. We would have to, under the MGA, we can't submit another land use application for 6 months. So it's going to delay everything in order to readdress that at a future date.
Okay, and then the last piece that you touched on with Councillor Wilson was the movement of buildings on the lot or on the land. So you're saying it would be more impactful on the Willows, existing residents?
Yeah, can you see this? Yeah. So in the proposed, we have 3-story townhouse buildings here, which are labeled as A, which we've moved farther away and tried to place them east-west so that they only get the end of the building, so to speak, as closest to them. Basically from about, just south of this pathway, probably right about in here, the land use kind of goes straight across like that.
Okay,
So all of this would become the bigger 3-story density buildings and can be placed up against the residents. We don't want to do that, but that's what we have approved today.
so then if we shift to the one on the left where the
Yeah,
wetland remains, you're
Yeah,
saying
there's-
those similar buildings would then have to be
yeah,
on the,
there's
obviously not on the wetland?
Yeah, the single-family lots are right in here, so this would become the larger density buildings.
I see that a little bit better on this one.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
okay.
in this location here is where where everything will occur. It'll come down into this location as well, but it'll be placed right in here.
Okay. I understand now, thank you. And last question, you mentioned, Ms. McInnes, about pumping. So was there pumping into the wetland? So water was being directed into the wetland artificially is what, I looked at it the opposite, that it was being pumped out for flooding, but it was the opposite.
Yeah, through the chair, yes. And I think, no, I think you can see a little bit in this old one historical photo where there was some water starting to pool by the road here.
Oh, I
And
see.
so what was happening was there was a pump set up and a hose to the wetland, which then pumped. So water was draining somewhere from here into this little area here, and then it was being pumped out.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear that it was being pumped in, not out.
Correct.
Awesome. Okay, That's the extent of my questions. Council, any other questions of the applicant before we turn it to speakers list? No? Okay, thank you. You have an opportunity at the end to come back and close.
Thank you.
We'll go to the speakers list. McInnes, Ms. Judy Stewart is first up. And just as a reminder to the public, we did receive a petition right before, so council will see that as part of the package, so just so everyone's aware.
Good
ahead.
evening, Mayor and Council. It's not with great pleasure that I'm standing here before you today, but I thought this is too important an issue for me not to come forward. I don't live in the Willows subdivision, as you know. I live in the East End. But I know the Willows. I know Wetland 80. I visit it often. It's my friend. I tell all the little children I teach to be friends with our natural infrastructure. This is a critical piece of natural infrastructure. It is also a very important aspect of the Willows community. The people who live up there love this wetland. They care about it and they want to keep it. You don't have to destroy the wetland in order to have affordable housing. I commend the developer. If the developer wants to build affordable housing, go ahead, make your day. They don't have to destroy the wetland in order to do so. The wetland has existed for since the last ice age, when the glaciers receded. It's part of a vast network complex, wetland complex up there. It never gets easy to speak to you guys. Anyway, it's part of a vast wetland complex that's existed for millennia. For us, we want to keep wetlands, and not only us, but everyone across the country. It's become very, very important and understood the importance of natural infrastructure. And these wetlands can be restored. As Stantec said, stormwater can be directed back into the wetland. In fact, council could ask the developer to create a stormwater treatment aspect and then feed the treated stormwater into that wetland. The wetland already is a community amenity without more. And not only that, it provides critical habitat for many, many species. In 2017, the MGA was amended. Now there's an additional municipal purpose to foster the well-being of the environment. The environment includes us and everything in it. It's our job as citizens to remind you what's important in our environment and what we as citizens want you to protect and keep for generations to come. It breaks my heart, and I want to cry that I have to be here and ask you yet again, as I've been doing since 1992, to respect our natural heritage, to respect these small wetlands that have existed and will continue to exist given our changing climate. The other problem right now that you face is climate change. And please exercise the precautionary principle. We have no idea what's going to happen. We have no idea what the next severe weather event will be. And we don't know, nobody knows. Not the scientists that we hired to do these wetland studies, not anybody who I've met in the last 20 years of my education, and it's been extreme. No one can predict what will happen once you remove the wetlands from the surface of the earth. But what they are saying is that it seems likely that the landscape will flood. All of the things that you're going to allow to be built up there may be at risk of flooding in the future. You just don't know. So, exercise precaution. Exercise precaution. Keep the few remaining wetlands that you have because they are critical natural infrastructure. And not only that, you can get federal grants to restore wetlands like this one. And it just takes a few little steps to have people engage in these activities. There's something else very important that I wanted to add. If the developer has already received approval for this wetland destruction ahead of this public hearing and ahead of your decisions, then to me that's a travesty, because it means we're standing here for nothing and they have turned council into nothing more than a rubber stamp. And that breaks my heart as well. So with all due respect, thank you for listening to me. I know there was something very important I forgot to say, but I've run out of time. So thank you for your patience.
Mr. Neil Esgard.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for the opportunity to speak on this. This is all about the commitment that the town has made to the people in the area and to Cochrane, as well as the developer, and the ongoing commitments. This is a recent picture of the wetland. You're wondering what it looks like now, and it looks similar to this. So there's just a few points on here. This is what I'm going to go through. When I heard about the wetland, I wrote Alberta Environment to understand what was going on. They communicated that their approval is only to do with the Water Act, and the decision whether to pave or save the wetlands is up to council. There is nothing about Alberta Water Act's decision that binds you, so you get to make the decision about whether we destroy this lovely natural resource or put in or keep it and keep something wonderful for the community. So the commitment that the town made and the developers made to the community started with the neighborhood plan in 2012. The plan has over 100 mentions of the wetland. On the first page of the plan, it talks about the wetland in, even highlighted in that red area, talks about no net loss of a wetland habitat. Every person who looked to buy in here has heard about or bought into this community or in the surrounding communities has heard about these wetlands that are going to be supposed to be saved. The plans are very clear. They include the wetlands and easy access to it for the community. It is part of the design theme for the community. The color choices they made, everything about the community is tied into this wetland. The wetland 80 is 25% of the wetlands in the area. The plan was to have a net, no net loss, and if you take it away, you're losing 25% of the wetlands. So it's pretty clear commitment from the town and from the developer in the neighborhood plan to keep this. Even if the wetlands did dry up, there's still you can just leave it there and create a beautiful green space. That's what people want. That's what people are expecting. As far as the ongoing commitment from the developer, this is from the Willows, the developer of the Willows. When you mouse over the area in green, it talks about the nearby wetlands, which are wetlands 90 and 80. If you look on the Willows West website, they talk about preserving the wetlands. So these are people who are deciding to buy homes right now, who have purchased homes. Everybody who's moved into that neighborhood is expecting to see a wetland or a natural area with paths going around it. It's been that expectation since 2012. Everyone has bought their homes based on that. It continues to be sold that way, and this would be a pretty significant switch if you turned it into housing. So what does Cochrane value? You've recently done a wonderful study through Cochrane and Vision 2050 about what does the town value, what do Cochranites value? Well, on the first one that you did, phase one, which is more general, we told you that we want open spaces and natural areas. That was the #1 response from Cochranites in your study, that we want to keep and protect natural areas like this wetland. All of these are different phases of the report where the townspeople of Cochrane have specifically said they want to preserve natural areas because it's important to them. In phase 2, it was much more specific. You broke it down, the town broke it down, and there was only one area that specifically talked about nature, which is why it's a bit smaller commentary. And again, protecting the natural spaces and keeping natural spaces is incredibly important to us. The town's wetland policy describes wetlands as irreplaceable, invaluable. We can pave this and get some community housing that will make it like any other neighborhood. There's 3,000 homes being built in South Bow right next door. We don't need the housing. We do need to protect something that we cannot replace. So please listen to the policies of the town, abide by the neighborhood plan that's been there for 20 years, listen to what the townspeople of Cochrane have said that they want, and please vote no to the bylaw and no to the neighborhood plan amendments. Thank you.
Ms. Lita Taylor? I don't see any questions. Thank you. I hope I'm getting everyone's name.
Letta Taylor, thank you.
Letta,
Thank you so much,
next time.
council and mayor. Supposed to have a slideshow showing here. Maybe someone's doing it. Okay, thank you.
That's not the right one.
No, no.
Which is your presentation? Is it the video?
This one was the slideshow of the photos. I can start without it if you like.
No, we'll wait. It's okay. I won't start your time until we find it.
Please, every second I
Oh,
can get.
2 minutes gone.
Mr. Mayor, we're working to locate the presentation from this resident. It was not provided to Ledge Services, so
okay.
planning is going to go and get that for us. If we can perhaps delay you till later on in the meeting and make sure we have those pictures up for you that you can speak to.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I see a Joel and a Vance Taylor. Are we all, or do you need the slide show?
Yeah.
I guess what I'm offering is we could move the whole group if you want. If you, would you prefer that?
It's okay.
Okay. So I'll call Joel Taylor.
Honorable members of council and mayor, my name is Joel Taylor. I reside in the Willows, adjacent to Wetland 80. The presentation given by the developer has excluded some key facts that I think are important to present here. And I've drawn most of these facts directly from the impact assessment that I hadn't pulled in my hands, but it's been included with every reading of this bylaw so far. And there's just some key things there that I think are important to bring up to council today. So we've talked about the responsibility of managing wetland land use in Cochrane, and as already stated, it's completely in the hands of the town of Cochrane. So I won't go into detail about that, but there is
it's well defined in the Municipal Act. There's no question about this. We've referred to Neil in his presentation has already referred to the status of the wetland. It's a class 4 wetland, meaning semi-permanent, and it has had water for as far back as we can see, and that has been, and it has maintained that surface water throughout that time. The Cochrane's wetland policy clearly defines its own responsibilities and its own processes for how it will manage the wetland. And critically, it says wetlands are a part of our natural capital, providing environmental service to our community, and once lost, are lost forever. And we can go into several details about what other things are in that process or in that policy, but I think everyone here understands that we do have a robust policy for managing wetlands. And I've highlighted a few things here, just indicating that we plan as a town. Cochrane has a robust guidance towards why we protect our wetlands. And critically here, it says whenever possible, the town shall use environmental reserves and statutory planning reserves. Now, in this impact assessment, there is a portion where it talks about excuse me. So I just want to jump right to this because the public sentiment is clear. We went door to door. We gathered many signatures, 525 signatures for a petition to expressing the Willows view that this wetland should be protected. So if the expert evaluations and the strong public sentiment advocated for the preservation of wetland 80, why then is Bylaw 18/2024 being considered? And I'll just read a statement in the impact assessment, and this is in regards to the mitigation strategy, mitigation hierarchy. My apologies there. And it says, madly considered avoidance of wetland 1, and in this case, this is in the impact assessment, is referring to wetland 80, based on the recommendations in the Willows of River Heights neighborhood plan, which is demonstrated by avoiding the wetland during the first stages of the development in the area. However, during the design phase of the concept plan, the town voiced the concerns regarding wetlands within the residential communities, the Willows of River Heights in particular. Similar to previously retained wetlands in the greater community, avoiding the wetland 1 and allocating it as an environmental reserve could result in poor wetland function, which would require additional management from the town. And I want to point out an important point in regards to what has been said already about the other wetland in the Willows, which is wetland 91. And the claim has been made that it has been dried up. It is a class 3 wetland. It's a seasonal wetland. It fills up in the spring, and it's often dry by the fall. It is currently quite full of water. It is not dried up, and so to point as that as a direction for where wetland 80 is going, I think is incorrect. It's false. Now, I want to refer to something important in the impact assessment, which is a key phrase. It talks about the catchment zone and the impact that has happened so far, and it does acknowledge that yes, the impact, there has been some impact to the to the wetland. And it says, much of the surrounding area is developed, and as such, the natural catchment has been modified, and likely a portion has been lost or cut off from the wetland. The wetland has not been substantially altered by these activities. And I want to refer also to the method used in this assessment to calculate the relative value. I think there's a lot of discussion about how valuable this is relative to other wetlands in the area. And fortunately for our case here today, Alberta has created a robust tool called the ABWRET that classifies all wetlands in Alberta in impact assessments such as this. And this one, they assigned it a grade of B. And that establishes it as a healthy wetland throughout the dry weather, which we see here. The wetland has sustained itself. It is still a healthy wetland, and as we've seen from all the photos that we've presented so far, it sustains a large number of wildlife, geese, ducks, heron. Last year there was a den of coyotes, coyote pups. They were all over the wetland there, and I saw a coyote yesterday. So the claim that this wetland is drying up and will continue to dry up and potentially become completely dry is just not substantiated by any of the evidence we've seen so far. This wetland, as you can see, in 1998 was actually a decent bit smaller than it is today, and even after the water was stopped from being pumped in, and continuing through the last years of drought-like conditions, it's still there, and it's still healthy, and it sustains a vital habitat.
Mr. Taylor, you're at 8 minutes.
Okay, so, well, that's all I need to say. The town has spoken. The Willows, members of the Willows have spoken through this petition, and we will continue to communicate to you through emails. We'll continue to deliver information, whatever is needed. We have a substantial amount of information here from this impact assessment that's been publicly available, and I would suggest anyone who has any questions to read this, because it's directly there from the experts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vance Taylor?
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I would like to announce that when I first heard about the pond coming down, my heart was broken. But I ask you to please keep the pond up. This beautiful landmark is amazing. There's tons of greenery. I saw a pack of coyotes grow up there. I saw so much greenery. I would please ask you to keep the pond up. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Letta, is that, are we, no? Okay. I'll go to Sharon Olifa. Please help me with your last name.
I'm almost as short as him. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council.
I'm here today to let you know that I strongly oppose the destruction of Wetland 80, Bill 18, 2024, and the redevelopment plan application. I live on River Heights Drive, close to the wetland. When I bought my home in 2021, I was told by real estate that these wetlands were a preserved area and would never be built on. That was the determining factor for me choosing the Willows as my new home. My house was built with no sump pump, as all of the homes here are not, they don't have sump pumps. I was assured that the town of Cochrane didn't require sump pumps in the area. However, I spent all last summer digging a trench to install a French drain to remove and address overland water problems that I have in my yard. That's a lot of work for an old lady like me to do. My concern is, if the wetland is filled in, where does future overland water go? Is this neighborhood going to experience the same kind of overland water issues Fireside has? Installing sump pumps and better drainage after the fact is an extremely costly venture. There's no street parking on River Heights Drive, all the way down past Willow Gate. Where are these people from the new development going to park, considering they're only allowing 1.6 parking spaces per unit? Parking is already an issue here. The back alleys are full. If you have more than one guest visiting your home, they often have to park up the block. In recent town and Cochrane surveys, residents have made it abundantly clear that wildlife and green spaces are of utmost importance to them. In fact, it's the reason people have chosen to make Cochrane their home. Why would this council vote to bulldoze and remove one of the very reasons that brought people here in the first place? Wetland 80 is a Class 4 wetland. That means that it comes and goes and is dependent on the weather. It's home to a wide variety of wildlife: deer, waterfowl, muskrat, heron, the list goes on. Watching the wildlife brings countless peaceful hours to the residents and delight to the children who live here. Destroying this wetland destroys the beautiful natural habitat for these animals. It also destroys the peace of mind and tranquility that drew residents to their homes in the Willows. Instead, developers propose to fill in the wetland area, pave it over, pack it even more people in cheek to jowl, and put a basketball court in our backyards. The sound of bouncing basketballs at all hours with no escape, because it's right there in our backyards, does not thrill me. There's already a basketball court in the park where it should be, 1 block away. This development will drive down our property values. It in no way respects the existing neighborhood. In closing, I would ask that you vote no to Bill 18/2024 and the River Heights Neighborhood Plan amendments. Thank you.
Lauren Bailey. She had to go. Susan Jackson.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for hearing us in the Willows. I live at 56 Willow Street. I am one of 4 properties that got the letter from the town development, and no one else in the Willows got that letter, just the 4 of us that back onto the pond. We sold and downsized, but I have been in Cochrane for 26 years now. We bought our property through Renova Homes. So Renova Homes, Sage Homes, and Willow West, they're still advertising the pond on their properties, including the map. How can we really know what they will do if they do proceed to fill in this wetland? Because the map that they have provided in the show homes when we bought our properties, we were guaranteed that that wetland was never going to be touched. And we bought our properties there because of the wetland. And as Sharon and ex-mayor Judy Stewart said, that what's going to happen with our property values, flash flooding, we don't know. The wetland's there to protect us. I can tell you the mission of Cochrane is to keep our heritage. Also, I had a call the other day and the lady on the other line says, oh, I hear ducks and I hear frogs chirping out there. Is this in your yard? I said, no, I live on the wetland. She says, you don't live on a golf course? I said, no, we live on a wetland. So please try to save the wetland. It's up to you. And like I am concerned too that if it does get filled in, if they're going 4-story buildings, you're looking at 40 feet now. And like Sharon said, we've already got a basketball court. We've got a park, a beautiful park that was built there. And if they're planning this, how do we know that they're going to proceed? I was at the April 15th meeting and Councillor Fedenko lives up in Sunset, and the developer promised a lot of things up there 10, 15 years ago, and they still haven't got it. So please, 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 just listen to us, the residents, and hopefully you'll make a good decision. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Colin Halley? Yeah. Did I get that last name correct?
It's never been pronounced right since I was at school. I believe we're going to show a video. So there's 4 of us, 5 minutes each. Yeah. I think the video is actually about 16.5 minutes. Okay. So we're giving 4 of us giving our time up to show that. I trust each of us don't have to stand up and say, right, there's 5 minutes gone, and then start a video. I would assume you'd just let the video run.
So Colin,
am I correct in thinking that's how it would do?
So it's Colin, Christy, and
Banu. That's all my family. Okay. And then there's another guy.
So those 3, you're saying those 3 presenters is this video?
Yeah, plus one more person apparently.
Respectfully, Mr. Mayor, the video was sent to us in 4 pieces. So it is not one long continuous video, it's 4 individual sections. So we can start them.
You don't need the person to keep standing up.
We can start them one after the other.
Sounds good.
So you don't have a presentation, it's the video?
It's the video.
Okay, understood. So we'll play all 4 videos. That's the next 4 people.
Can I get back?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the explanation.
In a beautiful valley, at the base of the Rocky Mountains, a thriving community emerges along the banks of the Bow River. The town of Cochrane is one of the fastest growing municipalities in the country. And as always, with rapid growth come big challenges. This is the Robinson Wetland, a prairie pothole left behind on the surface of the earth 10,000 years ago when the last glaciers receded. Located at the intersection of Highway 22 and River Heights Drive, this wetland tells a story of what happens when 2 worlds collide.
That whole area there at one time was a ranch. It was the old Rattray Ranch, and it was just one of the best ranches in the country. It's just too bad that the owners decided that they didn't want a ranch and they'd rather develop it.
There was only one road south out of town. That was the road that came down River Avenue and then across the old bridge and up. Most of the area was rolly, knobby hills with brush. Quite a few what we used to call sloughs and now we call wetlands.
Wetlands are sometimes hard to see, and sometimes they're seasonal, and sometimes many years go by before that wet area is actually visibly wet. There are various stages of wetland growth that the average individual doesn't know.
Wetlands are the link between a watershed and a body of water. They act like sponges, capturing, collecting, and storing water from rain, melting snow, or ice. They are natural filters, the plants and soils that live there, cleaning pollution and impurities from water heading to our streams, rivers, or oceans.
Well, the Robinson wetland was probably the first and it was most visible wetland, I think, and as we were seeing development move out of the valley, that's really when we began needing to deal with the wetlands. The development took place in a manner up there that probably wasn't the best route for development to take. We ended up with approving some one-offs with respect to the space. And one-offs are never ever good from planning context. And I remember the debate at council at the time on whether or not we approve one development to go ahead out of the context of the rest of the planning process, which we're still involved in right now. And the council of the day, I lost that argument, and the council of the day said that the one-off development can go forward.
We have this wonderful entrance to Cochrane that down the Highway 22, this wonderful natural asset that our town documents talk so much about preserving, and here we are encouraging car dealerships, and I'm sure we're going to see big box stores and McDonald's and fast food outlets, and with the intent of making us look like every other town in North America, when we have actually this quite unique and attractive setting. So why aren't we trying to do something a little different that our own statutory documents actually encourage, but in practice we don't follow?
We had a policy in place to govern how the town would deal with the environmental aspects of wetlands and riparian areas, and that policy had been in place for a year before I joined the town staff. But nothing had been done to implement the policy. It called for an inventory of all the wetlands and riparian areas in the town environs, and that hadn't even been started.
In 2006, with policies being ignored, the Robinson wetland was dangerously close to being filled in, destroyed, forever. Its new neighbor would be a car dealership, and the pond was not part of the plan.
See, what happened is the zoning actually happened first under the one council, mayor and council. So that had been granted. And then a stripping and grading permit was issued. New council comes in, you know, some more emphasis on wetland restoration and saving, and that's when the two worlds collided. This was to be 100% commercial land, and that was the annexation, the zoning, and the strip and grade permit.
I drove by the wetland every day on my way to work and on my way home. And the one day I drove by, I noticed that there were pumps on the south end of the slough, and they were pumping the slough out. The slough was already halfway gone, and they had cut a big hole through the south end of the trees with a backhoe, and that's where they're pumping the water as well. The thing that really ticked me off or drove it home for me was there was a white heron there that had a nest, and she seemed to be pacing back and forth, wondering what was going to happen now that the water was gone. So I guess that's when I decided to make a phone call.
Alberta Environment ordered the work to stop, and so began a lengthy effort to salvage what was left of this important ecosystem. The Cochrane Environmental Action Committee, or CEAC, agreed to take the project on, rallying passionate Cochrane residents, businesses, youth groups, and students. Noxious weeds, which invaded the wetland after the dig, were pulled. Indigenous species, bushes, shrubs, and trees that were removed during stripping and grading on the site were replanted. A giant debris pile and the property line fence were eventually removed. The restoration, truly a team effort that continues even now, with new planting every year. The car dealership became an important partner.
The Cochrane Toyota's commitment to this is to end up with a project that we're all proud of. You know, a living wetland that can be used not only for our customers, for our staff, but for the neighboring schools, and an example of how one of these in an urban commercial environment can be sustainable and healthy.
But it took a lot of time and dedication of volunteers to rescue a natural wonder that many argue should have been protected all along. Valuable lessons have been learned.
You know, while that development's good and we're glad that the business is being successful and it's up and running, and that's good for Cochrane, I think it's made for a number of really challenging planning decisions and really challenging with respect to the preservation and protection of that one significant wetland.
Well, the whole process that we saw in this development reminded me very much, and I think reminded others, of how important groups like CEAC, that is the Cochrane Environmental Action Committee, how important they are and how vigilant they have to stay.
The populace of the community has to stand up and tell the elected officials that that's not acceptable.
Cochrane prides itself on being an environmentally friendly community and being different and caring about the West, caring about our natural landscape. Then it has to live up to those values. It has to model those values, and or we're not really different than any other community.
There's only so much water, there's no more being made. And that's why the protection and management of our wetlands is vitally important, because our population is going to grow, no question about that. And so to be able to maintain that and maintain a quality of water and quantity, I can't emphasize more the importance of managing these wetlands. And these wetlands need to be free of big development.
We understand fully what we're losing by destroying those wetlands. There's a lot of what are called ecosystem services that those wetlands provide for us. They can't necessarily be monetized. We don't know we can't necessarily put a dollar value directly on them, though there's a movement afoot to do that through what's called ecosystem services, valuing these things, these services that wetlands provide, such as flood mitigation, sediment deposition, groundwater discharge and recharge. So by trying to put a value on those services they provide to us, we can understand the trade-offs between destroying that wetland and preserving it. And furthermore, there's also values from those wetlands that we don't currently understand, that we may understand 20, 30 years from now, and wish that we hadn't destroyed those wetlands, but not being able to do anything about that once they're under asphalt.
Well, I think even though you get annexed into town, it would still be nice to have wetlands within town limits. If you go to cities like Calgary and other cities I've been to, there's a lot of communities that's lake this, lake that, lake somewhere else. And I think a lot of those areas, those lakes or wetlands, sort of perform as a meeting place for people, and people fish there and skate there and have wiener roasts there, and I think it fosters a sense of community.
We know developers will try to incorporate man-made water features into their developments to give it that natural aspect, and so it simply doesn't make sense in some cases to destroy natural features to rebuild new ones which aren't as effective in the services they provide than what the natural features were to begin with.
The efforts surrounding the Robinson wetland have in many ways paid off. Early in 2013, 7 years after the Robinson wetland story began, the town of Cochrane announced plans to develop a new wetland policy. CEAC is working with planners and others to support the new policy that will strike a delicate balance between the need to protect wetlands and the need to develop lands for homes and commercial use.
I think we could have done better with that wetland if we hadn't approved the one-off development and we had have been able to take our time and more holistically plan the entire area.
Hindsight is a marvelous thing, and you know, again, alluding to our fast-growing community, you know, it would be nice for everybody to know what everybody else knows, but that life happens, and you don't know. You know that there's a desire to save these pieces within a commercial area. If I would have known this initiative earlier, would have been much easier. But again, it's bringing all the parties together and finding out the wishes and the wants. And we can't go backwards, but we can certainly go forwards. And so going forward, we'll do what we're going to do, and that's build something that every one of us at the end of the day are very proud of.
And people have always taken it for granted that it's there, it's free, and so it's the combination of the land, the water, and which is also all the forms of wetlands, lakes, rivers, you know, and of course ultimately the air that we breathe is the natural capital.
Impact the landscape for, you know, millennia, but you know, so why not wait? Why not take our time and try to do this right?
It's important for me to have healthy wetlands to exist in our community. I don't want to have to load up my grandchild and drive her for 100 miles to show her what a wetland is like. I want her to be able to experience the same opportunities I had and when I grew up in the area.
The story of Robinson Wetland has been a great teacher. It may have been saved, but as the boundaries of this town and others swell into the surrounding country, hundreds of other wetlands are in danger. And if they disappear, so do the birds, animals, and insects that live there. It's hoped this little prairie pond will serve as a reminder of the importance of planning, protecting, and preserving for the generations to come.
Down on the watershed, so many idle hands and well wishes. How will the water
That's got to be a first. Video representation over 5 or 4 presenters. Thank you for that. Next up is Adam Defoe. Oh, sorry. We have a question here.
I have a question. I just wanted, having had the pleasure of serving on council since 2007, these conversations are part of my personal history. I remember all of those conversations and all of the folks that stepped up to champion that. So I just wanted to thank everybody for that blast for the past. It was great to see all of those old voices and hear the old discussions and stuff. So thank you. That meant a lot to me in so many different ways. So thank you very much.
Mr. Defoe? Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, my name is Adam Defoe. I live in the Willows, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak before you. And I
apologize. Sorry to interrupt. We're just having some technical issues with the streaming. We're just wondering if we could just take a brief pause to make sure that we capture this appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. We want to make sure that we capture this properly. So
We'll take a 5-minute break. 10. Okay, we're live, all right. We'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you. We were about to hear from Mr. Defoe. Please make your way to the podium, and then just a heads up, I'll go back to Letta. Okay, I'll go all the way to the end and then we'll come back to her. So, Mr. Defoe.
Yes, my name is Adam Defoe, and I'm very grateful to be here to speak before you all. I live in the Willows, and I understand the challenge before you. The position of the province of Alberta and Canada as a whole is in need of housing. People need somewhere to live. And I also want to just emphasize I have the utmost respect for the developer for that very reason. Without developers, we would not be able to house as many people as we do, and we need more developers to develop. But the question I put forth is, what is the right thing to do here? Personally, I've got a lot to say, but I'm going to keep this very short. I just can't stand how neighborhoods are now created. We are living on top of one another. Houses are built closer together than ever, but for some reason, people are becoming further apart, more stressed, more anxious, stuck in their homes. Getting outside in the community is where people meet. It's where kids adventure. It's where we can breathe. It's somewhere to go. And I'm not just talking about the straight lines and the boxes, the developed natural sort of spaces. I'm talking about real spaces that have been gifted to us. And it seems almost daily my wife and I reminisce about the good old days, the way that houses had yards and communities had places of nature to explore. There was space. The Willows is stacked up like all other new communities, but the blessing that we have is that we have 3 wetland areas that not only supports biodiversity in our community, but also the communities around it. I had one of the 33% of our wetlands, but from past notes here, if 25% of our wetlands can be taken away in one swoop, what will come next? South Bow is being built behind us. There will be plenty of housing. Tax revenue will continue to come into Cochrane. Cochrane will continue to grow. People want to move here. And the very reason they want to move here is because of what we're talking about tonight. We must keep it. We need to build around nature and not squeeze it to death. Give the Willows every possible chance to be the good old days for our children and not the time in their lives where they were surrounded by straight lines and boxes, hoping that one day they can move to where nature is. And I know it's very difficult for you as a council, because I think that when we all really check in deep inside, if you feel that hesitation that maybe we shouldn't fill in the natural area, that is our moral compass. And we all know what the right thing to do is. Thank you.
Haley Defoe.
Sorry? Sure. Go. Oh, just while she's speaking. Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Haley Defoe. I'm 7 years old. I want to talk about our wetlands. It's a special place to be in my neighborhood. It's not just mud. It's not just water and mud. It's a home for animals and plants. But now they want to build more houses right where the animals live. I think kids need places like the wetlands to play and learn to see animals and have a place to ice skate in the winter. If we fill it in with houses, where will the animals go? Please, let's keep the wetland so we can all enjoy it and learn from it. It's important for animals and it's important for us too. Thank you for listening.
I'm gonna need a minute. I'm up next. That's just a little emotional.
Are you Carly Defoe?
I'm Carly, yes. And then my daughter, Jada. Okay, so thank you guys. As I stand before you this evening, I want to express my gratitude for your time and genuine attention as you listen to the voices of your community. At the end of the day, we're the ones who live there. I mean, we are the ones day in, day out. That's our neighborhood. That's where the kids play, walk, ride their bikes. So this is very important. So thank you all for your time. As I'm sure you already know, I am opposed 100% to the changes being presented to Wetland 80. Last fall, my family and I were actively involved in collecting signatures, which gave us a deep connection to the community sentiment. I feel confident speaking on behalf of the majority of the Willows when I say that none of us, and I mean none of us, want to see more rooftops and concrete, especially at the expense of a wetland, a thriving ecosystem. Despite what's being presented to you, and I appreciate that slideshow, that was the first time I've seen that, and there were some points in there. Wetland 80 is a haven for a diverse array of species. Letta will have her photos up soon, and when you see those photos, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. And just sitting on my deck the last few days, somebody over here said, you just hear the frogs. You know, you hear even from Wetland 91 that is apparently dried up. There is so much life in there. We try to catch frogs all the time and explore around there. It is truly heartbreaking, and I get a little emotional about this, walking through our neighborhood and witnessing the transformation from its natural landscapes to endless rows of houses. For instance, on my street, there are 28 homes, and only 9 of us have planted young trees in our yard, trees that we've paid for ourselves. We've taken this step in the hopes that one day our neighborhood won't look so barren and sterile. Gone are the days of tree-lined streets where trees were not just scenery, but playgrounds to climb. You could throw a swing over a branch and spend hours doing that. The simple joys of catching frogs, exploring the outdoors, are becoming memories of the past as natural spaces dwindle. The situation with the wetlands exemplifies the growing disconnect between humans and nature in modern society. Standing over on River Heights Boulevard, I'm not sure when the last time any of you have done that, in front of the wetlands, for example, if you were to turn a full 360 degrees, it paints a telling picture. Homes in ongoing construction dominate the view. If you try counting the trees, you'll find that there are distressingly few. Our wetland, once our wetland is gone, it is gone forever, irretrievably lost. And those videos and everything else, I'm so glad that all of that information was brought up, because obviously I only have, a couple minutes to share this, but there's a huge importance in those wetlands. It's not just about losing a piece of land. It's about losing a sanctuary where my family and my neighbors can go and connect with nature, enjoy its beauty, and also where we all go to skate in the winter. You know, how nice is it to throw a pair of skates on your back and walk down the street like we used to when we were kids? Share that with my children. The phrase, pay paradise to put up a parking lot, resonates deeply in our current situation. It serves as a dire warning of the significant losses we face. Losing not just patches of green, but the very essence of what this town is special for. Each area of natural beauty replaced with concrete is a step away from the charm and allure that draws people here to Cochrane. We're at a critical juncture. The choices we make now will profoundly impact the legacy we leave for future generations. And as my husband just said, it is time to check our moral compass. It's something we cannot deny. And I'll leave it with this. Nature does not need us. We need nature. Thank you for your time.
Jada?
Hello, my name is Jada Defoe. I am 10 years old, and I'm here to say I think we should keep the wetlands. In the winter, I skate on it. In the summer, there are frogs and animals. There are so many animals that will die. Where will those animals go? Where will the water go? They have nowhere to go. It's not just water. It's a small place where that people find some peace. Everywhere you look is just houses. Nature is being taken away. We have to fight to keep it. Is this really something we want to destroy? The wetland is a place worth saving. Think about the people here today. I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. We'll go back to Letta. Hopefully I got your name right this time.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll talk as fast as I can. Thank you, everyone. With country views and fresh air, you can live right beside nature, lots backed onto preserved wetlands and green spaces. This is a quote straight out of the Willows West website right now, along with
Letta, can you just move to the microphone? We can't quite hear you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Sorry, do I need to start over?
Yep, why don't you?
Start my time over.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
Thanks. With country views and fresh air, you can live right beside nature, lots backed onto preserved wetlands and green spaces. This is a quote straight out of the Willows West website, right now along with the map of our Class 4 wetland, with a path around it that's used to sell our homes in the neighborhood to this day. We uprooted our families, left friends, changed schools, quit jobs. Our families spent years looking for the right location to settle here in Cochrane, and when we found this property, we chose it because the builder showed us the community plan that is still in the Wetland West website. Sold us the property telling us this was the protected wetland, environmental reserve, and that it would never be built on. Once the builders sold most of the properties surrounding Wetland 80, a few of us got a letter saying that there's a new plan. Please take note, the first plan to preserve and put a nice walkway around it was not even honored. 4 of us got letters, and when there's a change in the community plan, the whole community should get letters. The wetland located to the west of existing, the letter says, the wetland located to the west of existing development, the Willows and South River Heights Drive is receiving extremely reduced water flow due to existing urban development in the stormwater system and is drying up. Because of this, it was determined that the wetland is no longer viable as environmental reserve. Proposed changes to the neighborhood plan will amend or remove all references to retaining the wetland. This is false. First of all, we do not have extremely reduced water flow. What we have is a Class 4 wetland amongst us. What's classified as a Class 4 wetland? Semi-permanent Class 4 is when surface water is presented for most or all of the year except for periods of drought. Our Class 4 wetland is doing exactly what the definition of a Class 4 wetland should do. I'm gonna defer for a minute. Cochrane's Wetland Conservation Policy 150202. In this policy, there are some guiding principles. 214, manage wetlands within the town through maintenance, monitoring programs to conserve their natural character and function so they can remain sustainable over long term. 211, development and uses in proximity to conserve natural wetlands shall occur in a manner that's compatible with maintaining the wetland's natural character, ecological function. If you look at the municipal development plan, I'll just name a couple. There's a lot. Environmental stewardship highlights the town's commitment to careful and responsible management of the natural resources and ecological assets that sustain life on Earth. The town of Cochrane has been working towards protecting the natural environment with initiatives that identify sensitive habitats and important natural areas. As the number of residents increase, so will the pressure on the natural environment. A particular challenge that the town faces is to manage development to accommodate land use needs while protecting habitat and environmentally sensitive areas. The goals of the town: to protect our water resources, safeguard ecologically significant areas, further ecological recreational values. We have minimizing damage for our bodies of water and our wetlands, preventing the loss of important habitat, ensuring efficient and effective use of land and resources by incorporating low-impact development strategies. It's all in here. Reduce or eliminate potential adverse effects on the environment, fish, wildlife, vegetation. It says right here, the town shall use environmental reserves, planning tools, as established in provincial legislation as the vehicles for protecting ecological significant areas. The town will ensure the developments adjacent to wetlands, water bodies, water courses will not do any of the fouling, reduce water quality or impede the flow of water, lead to soil erosion or shoreline damage, adversely affect the visual quality of the natural amenities, adversely affect fish, wildlife in our from the town. If it was true about the water flow, then here it states the town failed to adhere to their own town policies. And I'll just finish here. There needs to be a balance between beauty and building. Our town has a responsibility to protect our wetlands. During the process of advocating for saving Wetland 80, I met with hundreds of people in our community. The most common comments made were the people's lack of faith in our council to respect the will of residents, and the people do not feel heard as residents of the town. Over and over, comments from the residents were, I was lied to when we built, our town's being run on greed. What does this tell us? We brought 520 physical signatures from our community saying we do not want a change in our community plan. Please, we want the existing plan to be honored. The community has spoken. You have the chance to show the community in town that you hear us. Nothing that has been proposed justifies ignoring Cochrane's wetland policy, the Municipal Act, the Town of Cochrane Municipal Development Plan, and the public sentiment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to the end of the speakers list. Is there anyone in the gallery wishing to speak for or against? Okay, there's a few. I saw this gentleman first, the hat. You come to the podium, state your name and.
Good evening. My name is Christian Legro. I live in 48 Willows Street. I'm one of the 4 houses who received the letter from the town with the intention to destroy the wetland and build on top of that. I have a computer presentation. I have some posters that I've done myself with some pictures that I've taken myself. So if you don't mind, I'd like you to see how dead you think this is. Because I live right there with my family, and every single night we can hear frogs, coyotes, ducks, we can see different kinds of birds. And what they're saying that is dead is not true. We moved from close to Toronto in November 29, 2022. We took possession of this house. We were assured that that wetland would never be touched because it was protected. We came from a very hectic city with a lot of concrete everywhere. And we escaped Ontario to come here and then to raise my family with peace. That is not true. They're not saying, something that strikes me is that they continue to advertise on their website that they are selling houses, the developers, with hometown's view. Not 1 year and a half later, now they are saying that all the promises that triggered us to buy is going to go away. If you go today to their website, you can definitely see that they're still selling that, and that shouldn't be allowed. They don't care because they don't live here. You guys have the power to protect the community of Cochrane. That's why you have been elected, so you can be our voice. They're here to make money. They're not here to do what is right. So I please beg you, consider the decision that you guys are going to make, and please put yourselves on our shoes for 1 second and see if you would like to be affected the way we're going to be affected. Thank you.
Got a lineup? Yep, please.
Hi.
State your name first, please.
Good evening, and my name is Rebus. So first, English is not my first language, so if you cannot understand me, feel free to ask for clarification. I did not prepare anything. I just came here. I just noticed there is a public hearing earlier today. So I just came back from my gym. I didn't even put my hair up or something. So I don't know how this thing works. It's new. Politician is new for me. Democracy is new for me. I came from China. So I don't know how this works, but I hear you guys can hear me out. So I just want to say what my feel of this issue. I'm an environmental scientist. My major is environmental assessment and restoration and renewable resource management, doubled them. So I think a lot of people think wetland is just a pond or a lake or whatever, but it's way more important than that. It's a kidney of an ecosystem. You remove it, you remove the kidney. It's not just affect the people live in here. It's affect everybody in Alberta or in Canada. It sounds like crazy, but every wetland is linked together with groundwater system. It's not just one piece of water. It's one piece of water that links with other piece of water. You cannot just destroy them. It's irreversible. The damage will be irreversible. I chose Cochrane as my new home because it reminded me of my old home before it's destroyed. I live in a small town in China with only 3 million people. That's what I always tell people. My hometown used to be really beautiful. I remember I can walk into the wood, see the water, I can see sick deer. It's all gone in 10 years, and it's getting worse in 15 years. Everywhere is just concrete. I need to drive for like 50 minutes just to see a piece of green. And guess what? The house is still not affordable. Okay, it just doesn't really work that way. But the environment has been destroyed. But I had no say. I had no say about the development, but at least I do have some say in here. So please hear me, and please hear from the people, and please hear the earth. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gavin, and I am a resident of the Willows, and I have come here, of course, to fight and talk about the wetlands. The wetlands, to me, are important, and there's like a bunch of animals that I have seen there, and I go on some walks at night, and there's tons of animals there. You can hear, as other people have said, you can hear the frogs. And it's a really, really beautiful sound. I can always hear the frogs from my window, and everywhere in the Willows you can hear it. And I think it's a great thing, and I would really like if that was not taken away, because I enjoy hearing that, and a lot of people would probably say the same thing. They enjoy hearing that. And from what I've been told and the little bit that I've read on it, people were promised that they would have a wetland or the wetlands would never ever be touched. And I find it interesting how we suddenly changed that, even though on the website it says, like a lot of people have quoted, it says that it's a beautiful place and they would never touch the wetland. And it's, like it's a great place to go on walks and everyone enjoys seeing it. And the animals, I'm sure, love it as well, as there's tons of deer, coyotes, frogs. There's tons of other ones I could name, ducks, geese. All of them enjoy being there and having a place to be and not be out in like a concrete structure or around a concrete structure. Instead, they have a place where they can somewhat be peaceful. And when I think of Cochrane, I think of nice, beautiful green wetland and hills, not concrete buildings like Calgary. Cochrane is the escape from Calgary. It's supposed to be the place where you go to get ice cream and then look at the nice birds in the wetland. See, I have another point. I have to pull up my notes. Sorry. See. Oh yeah, about the Wetland 91. There was a community cleanup last Saturday. Yeah, or this past weekend on Saturday. And there was a bunch of like construction trash in that wetland, and the only way we could get it is with protective gear to go in the water. So there's still tons of water there, and it doesn't look dried up to me. It's pretty deep, and it's a nice place. Thank you for listening.
Hi there. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak to you. I hadn't planned it. I've never been to one of these open sessions. Just a little background. I'm one of those people that relocated from another province here. And the dream we had when we came here was not to have a fancy new house, although we have one and we are in a row. But it was that my husband and I, who are seniors, wanted to live out our life by being able to go to beautiful spots like these wetlands with a coffee, and it just renews everything that can't be said in a pocketbook or can't be really said in words. It comes from the heart. What I'm concerned about is two things: that decisions on land use amendments, from what I can see over the past couple of years, seem, and I speak for many residents that I've talked to, seem to be being pushed through. We as the public have no say. We say we do through process, but in reality, many residents don't know what to do. But we do look at that sign, and we look at it and we pause, and we say, now the West, this is how the West is now. 5 years from now, a year from now, we are living in a concrete jungle. Nobody in Ontario or BC who are bringing in all this growth really come here just for another house. Yes, it's more affordable right now, but I can tell you that video and those children that spoke, that's our legacy. We're stewards of this great land. You have an amazing province. You have the most beautiful town. You're blessed with natural resources that really are unspeakable. And I've been quite an advocate with many, many, many people from my former province because I was in development, so I understand the development role. I also had an opportunity to serve in politics, so I understand this, and I'm sorry that I gave you such a earful, but you do have power. And I respect that, and I really hope that you will give some thought to yet another land use amendment that speaks to the concerns of everybody that's here, not only for what's here tonight, but for the seniors who came here, who want to be close to family, who want to enjoy these spaces, who want to brag about this wonderful town and not be embarrassed to pick up the phone and say, don't come anymore, because guess what? We can't get around the town, you can't get to any wetlands, and we have to drive miles to get to anything. So please, respectfully, I hope you'll hear tonight that we're fairly passionate. I don't live in the Willows, but I am a Cochranite, and I'm proud to say that. And I still believe there's hope through you people that maybe this land use amendment you will turn down to show us that we can trust and respect that you two are stewards of this great, great place. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Sorry, before you run away, I didn't catch your name. You can just...
Deborah Gibbon.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I meant to write my name on the list, but I was commuting from downtown Calgary, so I didn't have time. I came late. Less than 5 minutes, I promise. Very quick. I speak very quickly. But I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to voice our concerns over the two issues that, if approved, will impact our community in a negative way. You heard enough arguments in favor of keeping and enhancing the wetland that has been neglected for so many years. And I'm 100% behind this effort. But I would also like to focus on how allowing medium to high density units in this small lot will impact the residents of the Willows, especially those on Willow Street. I'm on one of the 4 houses that is going to be impacted. I have the best view, so I'm really, really opposed to this. When we were looking for a new house back in 2022, I had a wish list. One is no back-to-back neighbors. I don't want to see my neighbor's kitchen. And the other one is it had to be close to a body of water. When we found our house, we knew instantly that this was going to be our home forever. We were promised that we would never have neighbors at the back because of the wetland, that it was protected. We made lots of sacrifices to come here and to buy that home because it was at the upper end of our budget. But it didn't matter. It was perfect. It's perfect in every way. I can see the mountains, I can see the water, I can see the church. I don't need to go anywhere to enjoy nature. The peace, the quiet, the beauty of the wildlife, the season changes. It is an oasis where I come daily to recharge after a long day of work and enjoy thoroughly during the weekend. Everything we've worked so hard for this, for is being threatened by a developer that only cares about money. Anyone that will suggest getting rid of a natural space has no principles, and I'm really to be so judgmental, but money is the only reason I can think of they want to get rid of this wetland. Why do they think that a basketball court is a good replacement? We have a court already. I do have a basketball net in my driveway. Once they're building, who is going to maintain the court and the space they're proposing to flood so that they can skate? Once they issue the final acceptance certificate, it goes back to the town. You will have to maintain that. Wouldn't it make more sense to maintain a natural space and a concrete jungle? The other big concern that I have is that if you approve building taller units on this lot, we will have the same issue that you're having with South Bow. Don't tell me that losing 3 or 4 hours of daylight during winter is acceptable. we are going to lose the view and we are going to lose sunlight if they go ahead with this plan that they're proposing. All construction types are more expensive today, and if you allow this to go on, the price of our property will go down, but not our taxes. We're very concerned about that. Please hold the developer accountable to deliver the initial Willow West plan that includes the beautification of the wetland number 80, build the trails, and build the houses that are still being advertised online. We're not saying don't build. We're just imploring you to find a win-win solution where we all win. The current product homeowners of the Willows, the town that will stick to the priorities by protecting the environment, the developer, and the builders. If the wetland is removed and they build taller units than the existing ones that they are right now, the only one that wins is the developer. We all lose. Thank you.
Again, I didn't catch your name. Okay.
Hello, my name is Juan Negro. We've heard plenty from both sides of the argument, points about whether or not plans to develop housing on the wetlands are practical, but I believe that some of us are too caught up in what we can do and aren't considering whether or not we should. The wetlands are a want for us and a need for the animals we love. Amphibians, birds, and mammals rely on the wetlands for food, water, and shelter. It is an essential part of migration and breeding, and it would be a senseless loss to take this from our community. The process of developing medium-density housing so close to our neighborhood will be drawn out, noisy, inconvenient, and ultimately none of us will be satisfied with the results. Cochrane's rapid growth is impressive, but if not controlled properly, it won't end well for any of us. We don't have the facilities or the infrastructure to keep up with the amount of new people coming in on an annual basis. I mean, the traffic is bad enough around here. The rebuttals by those in favor of developing houses are ironic in that there are no problems with the wetlands. We already have natural drought and flood protection, and it's a feature of the neighborhood that we're all proud of. There's no justification to take this away and build solutions to problems that we otherwise wouldn't have had. There are other places in Cochrane to develop properties, and progress is only natural. Our town is expanding rapidly, and I'm honestly excited to see what the future holds for our town. All I ask is that when making room for growth, don't expect us to settle for less. The decisions made in this room should always benefit those who will live with the outcomes. Thank you.
I'm Cynthia Schaefer, and I recently moved to the Willows. Couldn't help but enjoy the sound of the frogs in the wetland. I grew up catching frogs in the irrigation ditch near to my home, and something that just struck me tonight, and I don't know if anybody's investigated to see if any northern leopard frogs exist in those wetlands. Because if they do, they are a threatened species in Alberta. So I don't know if anybody has ever investigated that or not. My brother's a wildlife biologist, and he taught me that some years ago. It's still on the internet today. So I'm just putting that out there to see if anybody knows if there are leopard frogs in there. I used to catch them in the irrigation ditch when I was a child. Apparently, they're threatened here in Alberta. Thank you for hearing me.
Hello, my name is Nia Taylor. I live in the Willows. I think it's super important to keep Wetland 80 because literally the other night I had a nightmare about the wetland being taken out, and my parents were talking about the chance that possibly, since a big reason that we moved here was having the wetland right behind our house, that we might have to move because of it, because of not having it, because we don't have much other reasons to live here except for having the wetland right back there. And another thing is that, well, I'm not a big fan of leaving the house, but when I hear the frogs outside, it just makes me want to leave and just listen to them because it really is just a great sound. That's it. Thank you very much.
Not seeing anyone else lined up. I'll call again to the gallery. Anyone wishing to speak? Okay, not seeing anyone. Would the applicant like to come and close the argument tonight?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to pull my presentation back up just for reference. We've certainly heard a lot about the wetland tonight, which we're not surprised about. Just like when we first saw the wetland, we did imagine preserving that wetland. The comments tonight are about the wetland and how it looks today and the amenity that it brings. All of our studies and the environmental consultants that we've spoken to have expressed that the wetland is at great risk. What I'll say is, over the past majority of my career, the industry, municipalities have learned a lot about what it takes to preserve a wetland. This plan, the neighborhood plan, was approved in 2012. And the the town's new wetland policy was approved in 2013 or 2014. So it did come secondary. And even through creation of that policy, there was a lot learned about what it takes to preserve a wetland. This wetland 80 has a very small catchment preserved. Unfortunately, the catchment to enable the wetland to stay as it is today is not in place anymore. It's nice to hear that this wetland is thriving, that there is still water, that it's still functioning as a wetland. It does have a much larger catchment area. And in fact, part of the reason that this wetland has a larger catchment area is because it did have a really beautiful tree stand in the back that had a lot of wildlife and vegetation within it. So the area was expanded to pull all of that in. So it does have a catchment and some natural drainage still directed to it. So it doesn't feel good to take away an amenity, but we're fearful that that amenity is not going to exist because there is land use in place. As we can see, there's land use all around this wetland. And so while it's thriving today, development is going to occur to the south, and it is going to even further reduce the catchment and the drainage into that wetland. Had we known what we know now, maybe the neighborhood plan would have been designed a little bit differently to ensure the preservation of that wetland. Unfortunately, the catchment just isn't there. And I also we did hear tonight that there are individuals using the wetland for winter activities and skating. And I do just want to caution that it is a dangerous activity on an unregulated water body. That water, as we know, in a wetland rises and falls, which creates dangerous skating surfaces. So I do think that it's something that council probably should consider as well. I think that's all I have, unless council has questions.
Okay, I see a couple lights. Thank you. Councillor Nagel?
Yeah, I have a question. How do you respond to all these people who say that they bought this house under the premise that this wetland was not going to be developed on, and we're hearing tonight that it's still being advertised that it's not going to be developed on, people who are considering purchasing homes, and here we are looking to remove it. What do you tell your former customers in response to that?
So through the mayor to Councillor Nagel, what people are telling their buyers, it's true. It was planned to be preserved. That was the initial intention. It today still is still functioning as a wetland. There's no denying that. And we hope that our presentation didn't imply that it isn't, because we know that it is. We just know that the catchment is being removed. So even if we did not change the plans to remove the ER and replace it with residential land use, The wetland as it is today won't be there. So we're proposing to create a new amenity. We're proposing to add green space to replace the amenity that they're using the part of the amenity that they're using the wetland for in a different form, because ultimately, as we can see, there's just no catchment to feed that wetland in the long term.
If council does not approve what has been proposed this evening and in the past meetings, what we have here before us, if this is not approved, are you open to amending your plans to protect the wetland that you promised your customers?
Through the mayor to Councillor Nagel, we can't change the catchment. We can't stop the development that's happening to the north or to the northwest. And then there's already development that's happened to the west. So the catchment has been removed. The rest of the catchment area, which is now RMX land, is owned by Willows West Partnership, and they do have the ability to develop those lands. So the resulting area to drain into the wetland is changing.
Thanks.
Councillor McFadden?
Yeah, thank you. I did want to take this point to just let everybody know that one of the early presentations we had was like, you know, we've got lots of information, we want to share you, we're going to keep emailing you, etc. I just want to let the members of the public know that this is the public hearing, and after this closes tonight, we cannot receive any more information. So if you have something to say, don't leave without saying it tonight, because at the close of this public hearing is the last time that council can receive any new information, and that's why we're asking the diversity of questions. So I just wanted to highlight that for the members of the public that are here tonight. I also wanted to provide an opportunity, if I remember how this went, as part of your initial environmental studies, you do look at the wetlands and everything that might be in them. I don't remember this one in particular identifying any rare species, but if you just want to speak to your processes, that they do include doing an assessment of the wetlands, if you could speak to that further.
Through the mayor to Councillor McFadden, yes, our wildlife, our BIAs do look at rare plants, they do look at wildlife species, and they did both confirm that there are no rare plants or species at risk within the area.
Right, and that was the study that was done 2013 or whatever the year was done?
Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, it was first done in 2011 and then confirmed in our wetland mitigation strategy, and then also re-looked at from Trace in the 2022 wetland impact assessment.
Okay, yeah, no, I just wanted to help provide that context, that is something that is part of the development requirements, is to look into all those pieces. So thank you very much.
Councillor Federico?
Thank you. I only have one question. You've spoken a lot about how if this doesn't get approved, that eventually the wetland's just going to dry up and disappear. What kind of time frame are you looking at to state that? Because I think that probably part of the public is that whether or not it's 1 year or it's 20 years, I don't know if you could predict that. And for some people sitting here, 20 years is a heck of a long time to still be able to enjoy it. So I don't want to lose that factor that there's no guarantee of when it's going to disappear, right? So unless you'd like to speak differently to that.
Through the mayor to Councillor Federico, what we know is that the wetland is fed through overland drainage, and that is the result of our environmental studies on the wetland. We did borehole analysis and they came back dry. There is no groundwater source to this wetland. So as soon as the catchment area is removed, it will start to dry up. Now, I don't know if it will be basically an evaporation type system, so I don't know how long that would take, but there would not be enough water to sustain it. So the little bit that would trickle in from the area that is still environmental reserve may sustain it for a year or so. I'm not an expert in that manner, but it will dry up as soon as the catchment is developed.
Councillor Reid?
Yeah, thank you. I had a couple questions. One is, I think we all understand the development is going to occur somewhere on that piece of land, and that you have the right as a developer to do that. I'm wondering if you, when you talk about overland water, if you couldn't design the development so that water actually went into this pond and was like some other communities we've seen where you could actually have that water feature as part of that development, and it would be attractive, both to the current residents as well as new residents. Is that something that might be considered in terms of being able to move forward?
So through the mayor to Councillor Reid, it is an interesting question, and it is a topic of discussion that Alberta Environment is having with the industry, because wetlands need water, and in an urban environment, their catchments get developed. So how is water directed to them? At this time, stormwater cannot be directly directed into a wetland. It's considered untreated, unfiltered water. And the wetland, what will happen is sediment will gather, it will start to suffocate the wetland if that was to happen. And so there are some different mechanisms looked at in catchment areas to help filter that water. However, the catchment area in this case just is not big enough.
So with the with the proposed construction, could it not be a catchment area that would provide water to that pond?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, there would have to be, it would have to be expanded. So there would have to be a land use change from the existing residential land use that is in place to then preserve the wetland, which would mean something that I guess that basically as we have it today, and the rights that the developer has is such that the catchment isn't big enough. So additional, I don't even know if that, I'm not, I wish I had my engineer here to talk to.
Yeah, and I would just, I would put that out as a suggestion for you in terms of a takeaway.
Councillor Reid, I may add to that. The engineering has already been determined in the Willows long before we got here. So that stormwater has been directed to the pond that's at the east end. And you'd basically have to rip up the pipe within the roads to gather enough water to put it into the wetland if we could do that. The problem would be at this point, because the engineering is already done, as Pam said, you have to treat that water before it goes in there, and there is no place to treat it.
Okay, so places like Montera have treated water, is that what you're saying?
They would have, their 4-bay systems would be there to catch the sediment and all that stuff, and then they would move through the system. So yeah, it's designed, the Willows wasn't designed that way, and I don't think it can go back. I'm not an engineer, but you would need a whole other wetland complex or stormwater 4-bay complex to make that all work.
Yeah, I guess I need to learn more about that, but thank you.
Councillor Flowers?
It is very complicated, but some of the notes that I had taken from the reports are just so indecisive that it's hard to say for sure one way or the other. Like plants could, an absence of records on sensitive plants could indicate that very few inventory surveys were conducted in the search area. And it was just one point in time that they were looking at it, so I just don't find that they're very conclusive. There's a list of things that if you do take it away, for sure, things are going to be lost. So I'm just really uncomfortable with it, and I have a lot of questions for admin, but we can't ask those tonight, so I'll just have to leave it at that. But thank you.
May I address that? So I can understand, Councillor Flowers, that the reports do seem contradictory, because the original reports were kind of analyzing the wetland and talking about, that it's a thriving wetland. Then as we started to see it get degraded, we did a wetland mitigation analysis. And in that study, it talks about things you can do to preserve the wetland. And so therefore, it starts to talk about you can do X, Y, Z to ensure the wetland lasts. So those sound different than what we're saying tonight about a wetland not surviving. And so the Stantec wetland mitigation is it is saying that you need to put water into the wetland. You needed water from your catchment to continue to be directed to that wetland. So that in that wetland mitigation, we then realize that we don't have the ability to do that. So although it does talk favorably about there would be opportunity to preserve the wetland, we know that in the situation that we are in, we don't have that ability.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any further questions. I think at this point, we will close this public hearing and move into the next one. Thank you. And just maybe before you leave the podium, the next public hearing is the same, it's a neighborhood plan, not the land use. So technically, we're having a separate public hearing, but it's about the same issue. Do you wish to make a presentation, or does your previous presentation cover both public hearings?
Mayor Janung, our presentation covers both public hearings.
Okay, I thought that. I just wanted to make sure before you left. Thank you. Given. Not at this point, but I'm gonna.
How did the wetlands survive before the development for 10,000 years? That's all I want to say. Or for however long it was there for use all this, how did it sustain itself? That's okay.
Thanks.
I'll Google it.
Yeah, that's a little bit. 10,000 years ago is out of our jurisdiction. So we're into the next public hearing now on. It's 2B in our agenda, non-stat public hearing on the Willows River Heights Neighborhood Plan. I just need to confirm with administration that we've also advertised this as in accordance with the MGA. Yes, we have. And the applicant does not wish to make a presentation, although they already have. Again, I would ask in the gallery, we do have a speakers list, but it's the same issue. I do have 2 people signed up. Ms. Stewart, do you wish to address council on this public hearing?
I might just surprise you. I just want to thank you for listening to everyone today. It was very hard to hear from all these people with such passion. It's really hard to stand here and speak to you. Do you know that? It's difficult, and especially for little kids. The passion is wonderful. But it's not just about the passion, it's about the science. I'm opposed to these amendments, to the land use bylaw and to this neighborhood plan. And I think I've told you why. This parcel has always been set out as an environmental reserve with a little setback of riparian land to protect the wetland itself and to make sure that we retain some habitat and we retain critical natural infrastructure where it is situated on the landscape. It was set aside by previous councils, not by me. I was gone long before the eggheads like you sat around and made those decisions. I didn't have anything to do with it, except maybe in the background, giving advice to people here and there, like the mayors and SEAC and children. Mayors and SEAC and children, they've all spoken to you tonight, every single one of them. And what they've said is wetlands are important, riparian lands are important. It's important to preserve natural infrastructure for the goods and services they provide to society. The message is clear. Scientists like Kevin Van Diem or whatever, he sent me a little message and said, Judy, lend your voice to this. You're one of the few people who really care about wetlands and love them. And so I came here. I want to tell you a couple of things. This is classic environmental reserve, classic. You won't find a better case for requiring the dedication of environmental reserve. A little setback to preserve it, plant some trees, put people to work up there so they love it even more. It's classic. There's no reason to get rid of it. The whole nature of a wetland, if I can just get a wee bit scientific for 1 minute, is it is a natural location where water is present for at least part of the year. That's the definition of a wetland. So the water won't be there all the time. The water levels naturally fluctuate. We have been living in 4 years of semi-drought conditions. Naturally, the wetland water will recede. But in times of heavy precipitation, the wetland will rise. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. Look at these people. They're your citizens. They know what wetlands do, not just for the natural beings that live there, the worms and the bugs, the plants and the ecosystem and the food chain, but for people. People benefit from wetland. Anyway, I'm totally opposed. If I were on council, I would just be shaking my head, wondering how this developer got to the place they're at, coming and asking us to disregard our policies, disregard our land use bylaw, disregard everything we know about science and community, and allow this to go through. I would be appalled, and I am appalled as a citizen. Now I'm going to go away. I didn't know any of these people before tonight. Honest to God. I didn't know one of them. And they all made me want to cry because I know that wetlands are going to be loved in this community when I'm dead. And you should know that too. Anyway, I'm going to go away and go back and play with my little 4-year-old grandson, and I'm going to teach him that he too someday can come here like these little kids and be brave and say, we're your future. Don't wreck stuff that's important to us because we love it. Damn it. See ya.
I have another speaker. I can't read the writing. It's either Delia, Delta, Delilah. It's a D. Last name starts with an S. Okay, not seeing it. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Again, this is to the neighborhood plan. We've talked about the wetland. Was Joel?
Joel Taylor, yes. Yeah, so I wanted to acknowledge the stumbling I did in the first presentation and how I lost my train of thought. And I'd honestly prepared a much larger presentation, and hearing that I won't have the opportunity to present that, I just wanted to refer to the video that appeared after us and after me, and what the outlook that presented, in that community members got together and they restored a wetland that had almost been destroyed. And I know there's a lot of complications around this one regarding whether the original plan was sufficient, and I just want to. Sorry, I just want to get everyone, community members, council, everybody, just let's make something happen here, because we've already established how important this is to the community. If the existing plan isn't sufficient to protect that, let's make it happen somehow. And I don't know the policies, I don't know anything else, but we've got to make this happen. And I'm just asked that you'll join us on this. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate the passion. I don't want to rehash everything that we just had in the previous public hearing. This is about the neighborhood plan. I know they're connected, but I just want to keep the topic relevant to the conversation. But please, and don't apologize about your English. It was perfect.
Everybody is talking about the frog. I just happened to have a video that I was outside for the Northern Lights event, which is like 2 days ago. So I was not even near the water body. I was just in my backyard, but here it is. That's just in my backyard. So where those frogs can go, they cannot just magically jump to the rivers. For us, it's 7-minute drive. For them, it's like 2 generations, right? They cannot go anywhere. They just die out. And as a scientist, I just have to say something. Wetland is very easy to understand. Here is the river. Here is the mountain. Water comes from the mountain. You need to go to the river. And they go through all the different paths that we call aquifer, which water can go through like channels under the ground. So as long as the mountain is still there and the river is still there, wetland will always be there. There's no something like it just dry out. It's just not going to happen. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Again, on the neighborhood plan.
Yes, this is about the neighborhood plan. I'd like to just say that I'm strongly opposed to the River Heights neighborhood plan amendments. And we've already spoken about the wetlands, and so I wanted to have my say in this regard as well. Thank you.
It was Sharon.
Sharon Olive.
It's Neil Eggsgard. About the neighborhood plan, which I think you guys have all received, there was a petition that was gathered from the community with over 500 signatures. I think it was something like 80% of the homes that are voting against these changes, which would apply to changing the neighborhood plan. So really strong voice from citizens who can't be here or uncomfortable to be here for all sorts of reasons. Maybe they couldn't get through the traffic to get here, but you have a very small section of the people compared to the 500 voting. All of those signatures are from people who vote. They're from people who live in the Willows. They were all witnessed. The same that you would do, same things you'd have to do for a petition that was going to be legally binding according to the municipal. There's something, I don't know exactly what the act is, but there's requirements at the provincial level to collect signatures in order to require action by council. It's to that standard. So exacting, and when people went around door to door through the community and collected those signatures by hand. I did have a question. I understand that this is the only time to accept public information. If the developer changes their, adjusts their submission, is there any mechanism for the public to respond or to provide their feedback on that adjustment?
That's a great question. I think I would have to defer to administration. Mr. Hyman, do you have that?
Yeah, the applicant would, if council were not to support the amendments and the land use, there would be the opportunity to go with the existing land use, and they would submit a development permit, and then through that process, there would be opportunities for public comment.
So through the mayor, in other bylaw proposals, the developer has made changes post-public hearing that have been announced, and how do we so if that happens here, council hasn't voted on it yet, but their proposition has changed and other information has come out to the public. So if that happens in this case, how do we have a voice if it's not rejected?
Respectfully, Mr. Mayor, if I may, the MGA, once a public hearing is closed, the MGA gives the authority strictly to council. They can consider any amendments without additional public hearing being required, and that would come forward as second and third reading, which is happening this evening with South Bow Landing. There is no further requirement for public comment and or public hearing. Specifically, there's not a material change to the use. So where it's going from a high density to a medium density, that would not require any additional public hearing requirement under the MGA. That authority then resides with council to determine if they are willing to accept that amendment or not.
Right. So to the mayor, are we allowed to email you in this case if they make adjustments to the neighborhood plan? Are we allowed to email you, or are you allowed to read it? Is it a waste of our time?
Technically, I think I would also defer to Ms. Robertson. Now I get your name wrong now.
Once a public hearing is closed, council is not supposed to be considering additional submissions from the applicant unless they're actually making a change to their request that would change the bylaw itself. And they're not allowed to take additional submissions, or should not be taking additional submissions from residents either. They should be considering all the comments within this venue in the public hearing from both the applicant and affected parties in making their decisions going forward.
Okay. I would ask you to vote no to the neighborhood plan, and thank you for all the changes. Vote no to the change to the neighborhood plan, and thanks for the clarifications.
I think you have a question from Councillor Nagel.
Yeah, you said you had about 80% of the households respond in your petition. I was wondering how many, if any, residents were in favor of the proposed neighborhood plan amendments?
0.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Is that right? I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. I got to check.
a few residents refused to sign. Okay.
Sounds like not in support, but did not sign no. When given the opportunity.
Right. Okay, you're good? Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again, council, fellow Willow people, and everybody in the room. So this will be short and sweet, facts, okay? I went out and, first of all, I opposed the neighborhood plan for a couple of reasons. If it does go ahead, I'm one of the 4 that got the letter, and we back onto the pond. So if these buildings are built, where's the privacy gonna come? If there's only 1.5 parking stalls per unit and they've got 105 units, we already have a parking problem where we are. And actually, the RCMP have been out a lot in our neighborhood with theft, okay? The next thing is I would like to say is, I forgot my train of thought up here, but we just oppose the plan. This is the second developer that has come in to try it. The first one got refused to present the plan over in the Willows. And I am one of them that we bought our property because of the wetland, and this isn't about the wetland, it's about the neighborhood plan right now. Thank you very much for hearing us all tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the neighborhood plan? Yep. Christian, I believe.
We're just told that they're not advertising all these natural wonders.
Would you mind to just go to the microphone?
I just happened to go outside because I didn't have any signal here. This is their website. Still is up there. This is the kind of people we're dealing with. They don't care about the community. They care about money. That's it. I have it right here if you guys want to see it.
I think what website? We can go to it on our own.
Well, it's Willows West.
Willows West, okay. We'll visit it ourselves.
That's Willows West, and it is in the second part.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, applicant, you wish to have any closing remarks? No? Okay. Council, I'm going to declare this public hearing closed, and we'll take a 5-minute recess and let our